Business. Tonight on The Money Show, we'll be covering markets with Grant Nader from Benguela Global Fund Managers, talking about those U.S. interest rate cuts that are set to happen next week and how they'll affect the local market and the rand. Then we'll talk about the SA Tourism Investment Summit, the first from the Department of Tourism. Patricia de Lille, Minister of Tourism, joins us for that conversation. A bit later on, our Financial Sector Conduct Authority Commissioner Unathi Kamlana will chat to us about integrity and ethics in times of crisis. We'll ask him about a few South African cases there. In our Friday file, we talk about the art and challenges of storing fine cigars. Then we let you have the bragging rights in our Friday Biz Blitz. All that and more on The Money Show. But for now, your news with Maki Molapo.
Good evening, I'm Maki Molapo. National Treasury says the Auditor General has managed to recover 460 million that failed to pay for their services. The settlements come after Treasury wrote to 257 municipalities warning them that they risk losing their equitable share funding for basic services should they fail to pay. Treasury and the Auditor General briefed Parliament on the current funding model. Babala Ndenza has those details.
National Treasury says there is merit in the Auditor General continuing with its current funding model where auditees pay for their services. National Treasury Accountant General Shabir Khan says this ensures the office's financial independence. He says municipalities that owed the AG millions in outstanding debt have paid up after notifying them of their intention to impose Section 2162 of the Constitution and withhold equitable share funds. As of the 31st of July, the total outstanding debt to the Auditor General stood at 1.8 billion rand.
We've seen with this initiative already in the month of December, that message has already seen municipalities paying the Auditor General in the tune of 460 million rand.
But the committee called for a different approach to withholding municipalities' equitable share, warning that this will be detrimental to service delivery. Babalo Ndenza, Eyewitness News.
Councillors in the Tshwane municipality have overwhelmingly voted to increase their salaries by 5%. Only one councillor voted against the motion during a special council meeting today. The 5% increase is in line with the determinations recently gazetted by the Minister of Kokta for the maximum salary limits paid out to public representatives. Thabiso Goba has more.
Since the 2020-21 financial year, there has been no increases to the salaries of Tshwane councillors due to the municipality's strained finances. Today, councillors voted to increase their salaries by 5%. The Metro councillors will also see a bump to their other benefits like cell phone, housing, travel and motor allowances. Republican Conference of Tshwane councillor Lex Middelburg was the only one who voted against the increases.
We are also rated as one of the worst run metros in South Africa. I think it is wrong for councillors to award themselves salary increases. This is a struggling city. This is not a successful place.
The increases take effect from the 1st of July 2024, meaning councillors will receive a lump sum in back pay. Thabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
In the Western Cape, taxi commuters in Helderberg are set to face major travel disruptions due to the provincial government enforcing a shutdown for 30 days in an effort to stabilize escalating taxi violence. Today, Mobility MEC Isaac Sileku announced the closure of several routes and specified lanes at some ranks from Wednesday. This follows a rising number of deaths related to the conflict between taxi associations and the failure of interventions in areas such as Khayelitsha, Makaza, Mfuleni, Somerset West, Nomzamo and Lwandle. Lauren Isaacs has more.
Mobility MEC Isaac Sileku says he's acutely aware that the routes facing closure serve thousands of residents who depend on them daily. But he says the provincial government's first and foremost priority is the safety of commuters.
Over the recent weeks, violent clashes have claimed lives, families have been torn apart, livelihoods have been disrupted, and the safety of ordinary commuters gravely undermined. We cannot allow our communities to be held hostage by ongoing violence in the taxi industry.
Alternative public transport arrangements have been made to cushion the blow, with Golden Arrow bus services and Metro Rail trains providing additional capacity to help residents get to work and school. The MEC has again called on taxi associations, CATA and CODETA, to put the safety of commuters above all else and to use this period productively to pursue sustainable, peaceful resolutions. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News, Cape Town.
Staying in the province, Cape Town City Maker Member for Safety and Security JP Smith says a new plan to tackle gang violence in the Western Cape is not necessary because existing systems need to be reinforced. Smith joined Western Cape Premier Alan Winde and MEC for Community Safety Police Oversight Andrew Marai at the Western Cape Provincial Parliament today. The officials signed a memorandum requesting national government to allow municipal police officers to investigate crime in the province. Carla Peterson has that story.
MACO member for Safety and Security JP Smith says national government should allow municipal police to assist with its current plan to curb gang violence in the province. Statistics show more than 800 people have been killed in the Western Cape due to gang violence in the past year, among them 300 children murdered.
All we're saying is just make the existing systems that should work. The process is not failing because there's not a new plan or something additional being done. It's failing because what should be happening is not happening.
Smith says the key to curbing gang violence is investigations which lead to higher conviction rates for suspects accused of gang-related crime. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And City Power is calling on residents affected by power outages in some areas in the west of Johannesburg to be patient as their teams work on restoring electricity supply. The utility says it's facing some delays in repairs due to the water protests which were staged in Coronationville and Westbury yesterday. City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena says their technicians are on the ground in efforts to stabilize their network, adding that repairs should be completed by today.
I would like to apologize for the inconvenience that is caused by these prolonged emergency power interruptions which affected parts of West Dean. Our teams were on site on Thursday yesterday to basically work on the plants that were out of service in the area, which involved the replacement of some of the key equipment in the infrastructure.
Gold's trading at $3,644.02 an ounce. The rand's at 17.40 to the dollar, at 23.56 to the pound, at 20.38 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $67.44 a barrel.
In your sport, the Springbok women out upset defending champions at the Rugby World Cup. The double world champions seek redemption against the All Blacks. And Manchester United probe mystery of missing boots.
A look at your weather. A fine start for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated afternoon showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 27. Pretoria is at 10, also reaching highs of 27 degrees. Vereniging's at 19 and 26. A partly cloudy day for the mother city along with strong southeasterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. National Treasury says that the Auditor General has managed to recover 460 million rand in outstanding debt from municipalities that failed to pay for their services.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
In the city of Tshwane, leaving the Pretoria CBD, there's slow-moving traffic. This is on Eskiam Pahlele traveling through Hermanstad between Wormhagen and the R80 Irene. Also traffic sluggish. This is approaching the intersection of Naumay Pierce Drive and Main Road. There's also slow-moving traffic. This is in the Sharon Lee area. Malibongo Drive between Belez and the N1. While in the mother city, there's an accident seen on the N1 outbound approaching Gil Basson, causing some delays. Also slow-moving traffic into outbound approaching Airport Approach Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Money Show
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
On 92.7 or 106 FM and DSTV channel 856.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, equipping you with efficient and secure cash management solutions for your business. Good evening and welcome to the Friday edition of The Money Show. My name is Mateo Khoripe, in for Stephen this evening. The JSE has recorded a fair bit of good numbers, some growth, particularly this year alone, with the all share up more than 104,000 points today. But it's bleeding listed entities at the moment, with yet another set to leave the local boss. Ascendis Health could be bowing out to from the JSE rather. We find out what that is all about with Grant Nader, portfolio manager at Benguela. And then South Africa's tourism officials are rolling out the red carpet for potential investors at the Kruger National Park. The department hosted its first SA Tourism Investment Conference earlier this week. We'll find out from Minister Patricia de Lille whether any investors have panned a deal with South Africa and what this capital will mean for the industry. We'll also speak to the Commissioner at the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, Unathi Kamlana, on the importance of integrity and remaining ethical in times of crisis. Many cases to draw from here in South Africa, so we'll get into that interesting conversation a bit later. Then in our Friday file, we often do lifestyle on a Friday here on The Money Show. Our Friday file today talking about the art and management of those cigars. Now, I'm not somebody who keeps cigars in their house, so I wouldn't know how to store them, but apparently there's a special way to do it. We'll be talking to author and cigar enthusiast Koja Bafo. Then we'll give you the bragging rights just before 7 in our Friday Biz Blitz. And, of course, give you the best of The Money Show this week. But let's get into the show. Let's talk money.
And now, The Money Show with Moteo Kharipe.
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
Well, South Africa hosted the inaugural Tourism Investment Summit earlier this week in Cape Town, led by Minister of Tourism of the Republic of South Africa, Patricia de Lille. The summit, which is a G20 legacy project, firmly placed tourism investment on the global agenda ahead of the G20 Tourism Ministers meeting, which happened today at the Kruger National Park. So SA tourism, of course, one of those sectors that contribute quite a bit to the South African economy. Just last year, 618 billion rand. So further investment definitely would be welcome in terms of growing the industry in infrastructure and also providing jobs for the South African economy. Let's talk to the Minister, Patricia de Lille, about those significant investments that could be expected from this particular occurrence that happened, that summit that happened earlier this week. Minister, welcome to The Money Show.
Hi, good evening, my brother. How are you?
What was the main goal of this particular summit? Was it an introduction to the South African economy, to those South African tourism industry, rather, to those that didn't know it too well, or was it a matter of going there to try and find pen and paper and getting the money in for the tourism sector in South Africa?
Yes, our main outcome that we are looking for is that we need to diversify South African tourism offerings to our potential visitors. You know, there's a perception that South Africa is all about safaris and Table Mountain. Now, yes, those are iconic places and they must still be visited. But we also want to take tourism into the less visited provinces. So we then decided to have the first tourism infrastructure investment summit in Cape Town 2 days ago, where we were able to package 8 infrastructure projects to the value of almost R1 billion. We made sure that all the projects are bankable. We've screened them. We've made sure that they are compliant. We informed investors of the different methodologies of investing in South Africa, like triple Ps or build, operate and transfer. And, you know, also innovative finance structures that investors can come up with the new Treasury regulations that came in on the 1st of June 2025. And we intend to continue to grow the pipeline and have an annual tourism infrastructure investment summit. So the response has been very positive. You know, a project like God's Window in Mpumalanga, beautiful, hole in the wall in the Eastern Cape. Those were the kind of projects that we put forward. We had investors from all over the world, including our financial development institutions, our own PIC and IDC. And we're really trying to say that, tourism is undervalued. The contribution is about 8% to our GDP, and there's a potential for growth here. And that is why we held the first one, and then hoping next year we will grow the pipeline and then put more projects forward.
And how did the funding round go? Was there a response in terms of cash on the table, or are investors still looking to find out more on what the projects are about and what the incentives would be for them?
Yes, we had all the project sponsors there, the owners of the projects, and they have engaged directly with investors. Some of the investors are flying out to go and have a look at the projects and the potential, and of course the return on investment. And then we also had Saudi Arabia and their investment arm, in fact, two of the princesses of the Saudi kingdom. They were also here. And now I have set up like a one-stop shop in my office whereby any follow-up information, whether it's got to do with regulations or legislation, my office will be able to help potential investors with that. And then, we're also open for ideas. And I have also engaged the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, because Invest SA doesn't have a single tourism project in their investment booklet. We're going to put our projects in there now as and when they become available. And it's just to be a bit more aggressive to make sure that, tourism projects get the funding. We know that our fiscus is not in a good space. We can't go to National Treasury for money, and therefore we're looking at private investors. But we didn't only present as part of the 8 projects, public sector projects. They're also private sector projects and projects from sand parks in our national parks.
And just quickly, Minister, before we let you go, is there a sweet number the department is looking for in terms of capital coming in for these projects?
Yeah, look, the total value is about 1 billion. There's another Africa UAE investment summit the end of October. We're also going to pitch there. And I will be following up with the project owners from both the public and the private sector, how things are going and whether they've been able to sign deals. Yeah. And then we will give it a regular updates.
All right, that was the Minister, of course, of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, talking about the inaugural SA Tourism Investment Summit, trying to raise a bit of capital for the tourism industry. Major projects there, Quartz Window Skywalk in Mpumalanga needing about $10.4 million, or 200 million rand, and the Hole in the Wall in the Eastern Cape needing around 141 million rand. So lots of business to do there in terms of getting investment into the country.
The Money Show Explainer.
We're now joined by the FSCA's Commissioner, Unati Kamlana, who was speaking earlier this week and urged leaders to make integrity-driven choices even under pressure and in times of crisis. And it's something we've seen in the South African landscape. The number of debarments are rising by over 40% after the FSCA was more stringent with how people carry themselves in their jobs this year. Debarments by financial services providers increased by 43% between 2023 and 2025. Whereas the FSCA initiated debarments decreased by 16% over the same period. Let's talk to Unati Kamlana now. Welcome to the Money Show, Commissioner. Just how important is it for that integrity and ethics to run through the veins of those that handle money in the country, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector?
Good evening, Mateo. So you know, the financial system, the entire financial system runs on the basis of trust, and the work of the conduct regulator, the FSCA, really emphasizes this point. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of integrity for all of those that are charged with the responsibility to look after others' savings, investments, whether they're in leadership positions of financial institutions or just employees of financial institutions. If we get that wrong, we will create for ourselves bigger problems in terms of the stability of the financial sector.
We've seen recently the assassination of insolvency attorney Bao van Niekerk, but also just a worrying trend around professionals, especially in the financial sector as well, put under pressure as whistleblowers, people threatening their lives as well. You know, are you talking to professionals around the type of protection they can get in making sure that if they do have the integrity and they do flag some of these issues, that they'll be protected?
Yeah, I mean, we condemn very strongly the recent killings of whistleblowers, professionals in the financial sector, legal professionals, and so on. And the point that we've been making consistently is that for market integrity, the rule of law is essential. And therefore, we really want to send a strong message to law enforcement agencies to treat these events very, very seriously. If we don't send a message that this is completely unacceptable, we are concerned that we will not have whistleblowers come forward to either regulators or law enforcement agencies to let us know whether there's misconduct and issues that we need to deal with from an investigation perspective or from a conduct risk perspective. So this is definitely a question that we have to get right. In fact, quite importantly, it's also essential to the work we are doing to get ourselves out of the grey list, the FATF grey list. We therefore cannot at this point, in terms of the progress we've made, be seen to be lacking in terms of focusing correctly in protecting those that come forward in terms of whistleblowers and witnesses to some of the investigations that either regulators or police are investigating.
And you, as bodies that manage some of these regulations, do you think you have enough teeth? Are the sanctions harsh enough for people to be swayed away from not having integrity and not doing their job properly?
No, certainly. We think that even before we had to be dealing with the questions that were raised by FATF, we have started as the FSCA to focus very, very specifically on making sure that the sanctions that we impose for misconduct are sufficiently dissuasive and serve as a deterrent to wrongdoing in terms of maintaining the integrity of financial sector laws. And we think that, of course, we need to stay the course. One cannot say that we've done enough. We need to stay the course and send a strong message about the importance of integrity. Again, to deliver to this very important objective of building trust in the financial system. So we will continue on this path, and we work together with our partners in law enforcement to send a very strong message about how important it is for an economy such as ours to send a strong message around the importance of the rule of law and integrity, so that those who want to invest in South Africa, given that we compete with other emerging markets and developing economies, can be confident that their rights will be enforced and protected to the extent that they invest in our economy.
You often mark the regulatory actions report as the FSCA. Are you seeing enough action from financial service providers in South Africa where they do their own internal processes and flag it to you to say a couple of our own workers have not been doing what they've been supposed to do, and not being honest, not having the integrity that is needed. Are you seeing that flagging happen often enough, or are FSP still afraid of how this will taint their own brands?
No, our financial services providers, I think we're quite confident that they understand and appreciate the responsibility that they have to contribute to this work, and in fact their actions bolster confidence in the financial sector, and therefore it's not an issue that we have seen at all that they would hold back in taking action because they are afraid of protecting their own brands. It's quite important for all of us to pull together, and our assessment is that all of those who carry the license to operate in the sector appreciate the responsibility that comes with that, and all of us have to protect the perimeter of the license. So it's not only about taking action against employees; it's also about flagging those who operate in the sector without adequate authorization to operate, so that we can make sure that the sector is trusted and the sector operates with the levels of integrity that are absolutely required.
All right, that was Unathi Gamlan, Commissioner at Financial Sector Conduct Authority, talking about the importance of integrity in times of crisis.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Good end to the week for the JSE. The all share up 531 points, still above that 104,000 point mark. Grant Nade, a portfolio manager at Benguela Global Fund Managers, joins us now to break down the markets. A good day for the JSE, backed by banking stocks, something that started yesterday, and mining shares that came through today.
Yeah, good evening, Mateo. I mean, it's exactly what you want to see in a market that's had a good run. You want to see other stocks starting to deliver. The banks have been laggards. We saw some decent numbers coming out there. And now the financials are looking interesting. People are looking around there. They're looking in some of the retailers. They're looking for value outside of the resources. And there's some value appearing. Certainly the bank numbers are solid enough to justify a little nibble at these levels. And so it's keeping a general bid in the market. And I think it's a positive trend we've seen.
While that positive trend happens, the JSE is still grappling with companies that are willing to delist. As much as I know the JSE is looking for more listings, but those delistings are coming thick and fast. The latest, Ascendus Health. What exactly is happening there?
So that's interesting. I mean, I'm not that close to the story, but that one has been sort of, there's been a large private equity interest for quite some time. And they've really been battling, reshaping that business, spinning off excess businesses. After a massive expansionary journey 5-6 years ago, they've had to, where they just took on too much debt. They've been resizing, downsizing, right-sizing that whole business. It actually makes sense. And that really is a sign, hopefully, that we're nearer to the lows in the market. There are a lot of these small caps delisting, as you said. And it's a sign that there's just so much value there. You know, things are really cheap. And it does suggest that if you're patient and you do your homework, there are opportunities.
Definitely opportunities there. Then excitement all around the world in the markets with the US Fed. Everybody's side-eyeing the US Fed, looking forward to next week around that interest rate cut in the US. Everything pointing to it. The weaker jobs numbers, the US inflation rising in August. Do you expect that cut to come through, and how deep will it be?
Look, I think you can pretty much say it's given that there will be a cut, but I don't think it's going to be more than 25 bips. There are some looking for a bit more. I think that's a bit wishful thinking. But what really will then become the story is, well, how many cuts do they see between now and the end of the year? So, you know, if we get the 3 that they're talking about in terms of expectations between now and December, that's going to be supportive of markets. And markets are already running ahead of these cuts, but we need it to come through. The disappointment, if there's disappointment on that front, that's where the risk is from a market point of view.
Talking about cut, on the South African view, do you see the South African Reserve Bank still having a few up their sleeve as well, going into the end of the year?
Yeah, I think they do. Unfortunately, I don't think it comes next week. I mean, this is a question we're all asking. Our sort of notoriously hawkish and Reserve Bank will probably be concerned that inflation's ticking up again in SA, and then they might just be a little more cautious, remembering that they're trying to reset the inflation expectations lower. So if you're cutting rates and raising inflation expectations, it might not send the right message. So there's a chance they cut next week. I think it's more likely it's the next meeting.
Grant, you and I know exactly what I'm hoping for next week. Grant Nader, a portfolio manager at Benguela Global Fund Managers, are breaking down the markets there for us. Time now is 6:30. Some headlines with Maki Malapo.
Thanks, Mateo. Good evening. Former President Thabo Mbeki says he was puzzled there was controversy over his foundation hosting the Congolese rebel militia group M23 in South Africa. Last week, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation held a peace dialogue in Pretoria focusing on the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Speaking at an event at the University of South Africa today, Mbeki said the peace talk would have been useless without representatives from the militia group. Tabiso Goba has more.
The M23 rebel militia group has been designated as a terrorist organization by the African Union and the United Nations. The Department of Defense has also blamed the group for the deaths of the 14 South African soldiers that were stationed in the eastern DRC for a peacekeeping mission. However, former state president Thabo Mbeki has defended the decision to invite the group.
It puzzled me that the question arose at all, because you can't discuss peace and security in the Congo without involving the M23. Otherwise, you are joking. That is why you have a process taking place in Doha, in Qatar, where the government of the Congo and the M23 are meeting. Necessarily, it's correct.
During his talk, Mbeki has lamented that the spirit of Pan-Africanism is depreciating in South Africa and across the continent. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
Eastern Cape Police have opened a case of culpable homicide after a head-on collision between two trucks on the R72 earlier today claimed one life and left two other people seriously injured. The accident happened in the early hours of this morning between Alexandria and Kenton-on-Sea as a bakery truck was delivering bread to local stores. The driver of the bakery truck died at the scene while his co-driver and the driver of the other truck were rushed to Livingstone Hospital in Gqeberha. Eastern Cape Transport Department spokesperson Unati Binqose.
The Ministry for Transport in Eastern Cape, Mr. Kolengata, is extending his sincere word of condolences to the family of the person who passed on in this accident, while wishing those in hospital a speedy and a full recovery.
Gauteng Traffic Police have arrested 43 motorists for reckless and negligent driving on the provincial freeways this week. The suspects, aged between 21 and 44, were caught speeding between 148 and 188 kilometers per hour on the N1, the N4 and the R21. Among them was a 37-year-old BMW driver nabbed on the N4 near Emalahleni after clocking 188. Gauteng Traffic Police spokesperson Sello Maremane warns that lawlessness will not be tolerated.
Overspeeding remains one of the leading cause of road fatalities, and for these reasons, law enforcement agencies are intensifying efforts daily to promote road safety and enforce the law unconditionally.
And finally, in celebration of Heritage and Tourism Month, Table Mountain Aerial Cableway Company has unveiled a new 7 Wonder of Nature frame. The yellow frame is one of 7 across the city that provides citizens and tourists with a picture-perfect view of the scenery within Cape Town. This new frame replaces the one that had been removed from the Cape Town Station forecourt following precinct upgrades. Managing Director for Table Mountain Aerial Cableway Company, Wahida Parker, says this is a milestone.
Today, to celebrate Heritage Month, to celebrate spring, to celebrate everything that's good about Cape Town, we thought this is an opportune moment to actually unveil one right here where you can get a beautiful glimpse of the view behind you.
A look at your weather. A fine start in store for Gauteng, becoming partly cloudy tomorrow with isolated afternoon showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 10 and 19 degrees and peak at alternating highs of 26 and 27 degrees. A partly cloudy day for the mother city along with strong southeasterly winds tomorrow at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. Former President Thabo Mbeki says he was puzzled there was controversy over his foundation hosting the Congolese rebel militia group M23 in South Africa.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this hour, if you're leaving the Pretoria CBD, just keep in mind there's an accident scene in the Hermanstad area on Eskiam Pahlele. This is before the R80, causing more than a 30-minute delay all the way from Vomhagen. So avoid that route at all costs. Rather, use Paul Kruger or even Bremer Street as alternatives. There's also an accident scene in the Montana area. This is N1 northbound near the N4 Duranport toll plaza. This is also causing some delays from Sefako Mahato Drive. Otherwise, things have settled down nicely in the Joburg area. We still have those roadworks though. That's in the Devland area, slowing down traffic on the Golden Highway between the N1 and Union Avenue. Also driving through into Soweto. This is in the Pinville area. There's slow-moving traffic on Chris Hani Road opposite Maponya Mall in the Mother City. There's an accident scene on the N1 outbound approaching Gil Bason, causing some delays. And there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic into outbound. This is heading towards Airport Approach Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Tani Esther, or should I say the Tupperware Tani? How's business going?
Business is booming. I've been operating out of the boot of my car for 10 years, but shame, it couldn't keep up with my growing empire.
Okay, so you sold it to We Buy Cars?
Yes, quick. Sold my old one, bought a bigger one. I even sold some of my Tupperware to the friendly guy who picked up my car.
Stick to what you know best, eh, Tani?
Excuse me?
Never mind. We Buy Cars. Geared for your business, geared for you.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 750 gram, 780 gram, 850 gram Nola mayonnaise, excluding squeeze bottle, for $38.99. Save R6 with Spar rewards, or 2-liter Spar full cream or low-fat ultra-pasteurized milk for $32.99 with Spar rewards. Plus, you could win your share of R6 million in instant cash. Price is valid until 22 September 2025. While stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Last orders coming through during your drive home or at midnight. Your customers check out whenever, wherever. With seamless payment integration and over 18 ways to get paid, PayFast by Network is built to keep up. And when it's time to grow, funding with Easy Advance helps you take the next step. Always open for late nights, for early starts, for you. Sign up today at payfast.io. PayFast has partnered with Time Bank to offer funding to your business.
You're with Moteo Haribe on 702 and Cape Talk.
Welcome back to The Money Show. If you missed our earlier conversation with Patricia DeLille, we were talking about the South African Tourism Investment Summit, the Tourism Department trying to raise more funds for projects in God's Window, the Skywalk there in Mpumalanga, also trying to raise some money for the Hole in the Wall resort in the Eastern Cape, around 141 million rand that is needed there. We've got an interesting message on WhatsApp from Mamelo. Speaking of God's Window, has the minister collaborated with the Department of Roads and Transport, because the roads along the panoramic route are in a horrible state? Now, I've never traveled to that part of the world, but it would be really not good if you have an incredible God's Window, but getting there is a nightmare. But I'm sure that's why all this capital is being raised by the South African Tourism Department. Hopefully, all that money goes to improving all those efforts, the roads and the infrastructure.
EWN Sport.
Tolakele Mganga keeping score. It's going to be a busy weekend in terms of sports. I'm staying home with my TV. What's the latest?
Well, Muteo, Springbok women captain Nolusindisi Boy says the aim is to empty her tank. That's when the team goes up against New Zealand in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. South Africa are through to the last 8 for the first time and face their toughest assignment yet. That's in a showdown with the defending champions.
My last World Cup, for me, it's about giving everything, because I know that after we are done with the World Cup, I won't touch a rugby ball again. So I have to give everything that I have. I have to make sure that I'm emptying the tank for anyone who wants to come and get get the jersey, it's there. For us as a team, we know that it's a big one for us. We are playing against the top-ranked team. We respect them, but we know that we work as a team and there are opportunities out there for us.
The New Zealand versus South Africa rivalry will also be played out in the men's game. That's when the double world champions go up against the All Blacks in the Rugby Championship. Siya Kolisi has discussed the blend of youth and experience in the team that was selected for the clash.
The mixture of the team is really good. A lot of the guys that everybody is looking at our backline saying this is youngsters, a lot of the guys have played here before, and some of them have won 2 World Cups. A guy like Gaza, Sasha has played a couple of games. So people are looking at it as if there's these youngsters who've just been thrown in. They've experienced this kind of level. If you look at the test caps, it's not like a new team, but it's just that it's new when you don't see the regular names that you see each and every single time.
The MTN 8 final tomorrow pits defending champions Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch. Tsegofatso Mabasa and his Buccaneers teammates go into it looking to win this trophy for a historic 4th year in a row.
I think coach is very hard on us as players, only because he wants us to improve. Always fighting over first touches, regardless of how difficult pitches in this country may make it. He always wants the best of his players and encourages us to do our best as well. So that is one element that I like a lot about him, and that what makes him unique as well. It's the ability to give his players confidence. He demands quite a lot from his players.
And Altai Bayandia will keep his place for this weekend's Manchester derby despite the arrival of Senna Lomens at United. Bayandia has played all 3 Premier League games so far, having usurped Andre Onana, who's now moved to Trabzonspor on loan. Ruben Amorim believes that Lomens can compete to be his number 1, but is wary of throwing him in the deep end against City.
Altai is going to continue because we need to. It's a different league, it's a different country, different trainings, different ball. So we'll try to maintain that, and they will fight for the position. So for me, for this game, it's clear Altai will start.
Tolagele Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
The Money Show.
The Friday File.
The Friday File.
Time for some lifestyle here on The Money Show through our Friday File feature, talking about the art and challenges of storing fine cigars. Now, I'm not a person that has fine cigars in their living room stored away, but that's why I'll be talking to somebody who's a cigar enthusiast and author, Kojo Bafo. Great to talk to you again, Kojo.
Hi, Mateo. Hello.
I think it's one of those things for me. I do have friends that love cigars and love storing them, but I've never thought it to be an art. I just thought it was cigars in a box. But what exactly is so fascinating about making sure that those cigars are kept there? Does it keep the quality? Do they get better with time?
So cigars generally have to be kept at a certain humidity. I think it's around 70 degrees. In terms of humidity. If you just put them in a box, they're going to dry out. When they dry out, they flake and they unwrap. So it's actually a necessity, not even a luxury.
Then just that humidity control, what are we talking about? What could the temperatures be there? Because I'm thinking of a South African summer and things can get quite tricky. Are there different boxes for different climates?
No, because, the box is usually, regardless of the size, it's usually kind of airtight. And there are different ways of maintaining humidity. So, for example, I have this very small humidor, which can hold about like 10, 12 cigars. And there's something called a Boveda pack. So that it's a pack you put in. It's kind of soft. It has like a gel on the inside, and it maintains the humidity within your humidifier. And the bigger ones, for example, will have like an electronic humidifier, which you put in. There's water that you put in to ensure that the humidity stays consistent. And even rooms. So, for example, a cigar lounge or a cigar shop, if you'll notice, whenever you go into a tobacconist and have cigars, it's usually in a little room or cubicle of its own that's sealed, and they will have something bigger that, for example, electronic that powers the humidity in the room, and then that's also kind of tracked. And in this day and age, like especially with the bigger ones, there are kind of electronic, I think they call them gyrometers, that will show you what the humidity in the humidifier is. So, I mean, that's how you store them, that's how you keep them. And, when you come out, when you take it out, that's when kind of the environment would affect it. And to a certain extent, I mean, if for those of us in Gauteng, the air tends to be quite dry. So if you left a cigar out for even like a couple of days, it would start to flake.
So not only are you buying the cigars and the box, the room temperature as well would have to be at a particular temperature. Are you also buying, air conditioning, especially for the cigars, or you can just pop a window open? How does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, it wouldn't be the case if you've got, the humidifier is that little box that you get, and they have various sizes. So that's all you need to worry about. Like, you just need to worry about where the humidifier, the box that you're keeping your cigars in, the humidity is kept at a particular temperature. If you're going with a room, I mean, like I know a couple of very fortunate people that will have a room in their house. So, for example, in their study and entertainment area, that's when you then have to worry about the temperature or the humidity in the entire room. So you don't really have to. I mean, for example, I just got home and I bought some cigars, and I literally immediately took them out of the pack that I was carrying them in and put them into my humidifier, which has a Boveda pack, a humidity pack in it. And so I know that my cigars are fine, and they're sitting on a bookshelf next to my desk. And as long as I keep them in there, then I know they'll be fine.
Managing things like smoking cigarettes, you think of just about the box and the cigarettes in the box, and that's all you have to do. But with cigars, a little bit of investment that still needs to happen with the humidors and the other boxes you have to get. Are there budget-friendly boxes, or should you be talking budget if you're smoking cigars?
Look, I mean, keeping cigars or being a cigar enthusiast is like if you drink wine, if you drink whiskey. Like, you're not just going to leave your bottles all willy-nilly lying around, right? So it's the same principle. And in terms of cost, it ranges. Like, you can get from a couple of thousand all the way to tens of thousands. It depends on the size. Some are designed to have artwork on them. So it really is just about kind of what your pocket allows, and what your design aesthetic is. So it's not something where it's inaccessible if you can't go and buy kind of top of the range humidifier. So, I mean, there are a full range at all kind of price points.
And have you had a good taste of a smooth or a cigar that has character after being placed in a humidor for at least 3 to 6 months? The longer it stays there, does it become better?
Well, I mean, I've actually had one of my favorite cigars is called Aromacraft. I can't remember which particular one it is. And I remember a friend bringing a batch back from Nicaragua, and we smoked a couple when he came back with it, and it was quite strong. It was quite overbearing. And he left a couple in the humidor, and I mean, he owns a cigar shop, so the humidor is quite big. It's actually a room. And about 3 months later, we smoked it, and it actually it tempered the strength. It was less overwhelming, and it was a lot more character, a lot more enjoyable. The flavors came out a lot more. So sometimes what happens is, because cigars are aged, there's an entire kind of harvesting process and drying and fermentation, but also once they've rolled them, they'll often age them for a couple of months in a massive kind of humidifying room in the warehouse. But sometimes also, if you get a couple of cigars and you leave it in the humidor and come back to it a few months later, you'll find that it actually does impact or influence the flavor. So, I mean, I've had the the flavor notes that come out of it, and the quality of the smoke.
Now, Cuba has, of course, the greatest PR when it comes to cigars, but are there, those nice little places, spots that you can go to find other brands of cigars that we haven't heard of? I know you're an aficionado, so you would know a few more places other than Cuba that people can, invest in and find better cigars.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's what's called New World cigars. So there's a kind of tobacco belt. It covers Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Costa Rica, and a lot of the cigars that are coming out have been for the last kind of 50, 60 years, come from those places. So once you get into cigars, like we all start with Cubans, but as you kind of get into it, there's a lot of really nice cigars from elsewhere, and I think if you're into cigars, then you'll know the kind of breadth of it. The interesting thing is that a lot of the factories, a lot of the brands, a lot of the plantations are actually run by second, third, fourth generation Cuban immigrants.
Yeah.
So you find their families worked in cigars during, before the Cuban Revolution, and after the Cuban Revolution, they kind of moved to different places and grow tobacco from there. So I mean, you get really good Cuban cigars. COVID did have an impact on not just Cuban cigars, but kind of the rest of the world. But yeah, I mean, there's a full breadth, and for me, the joy of it is being able to experiment and finding what suits your palate. I mean, I met somebody recently in a humidor, and he was trying out different cigars because he just started smoking cigars, and I told him I actually envy him, because I mean, I still always try when I come across a new brand, when I come across a new release, I will try it just to get a sense of does it fit my palate or doesn't it? And he was at the start of his journey, and I remember being there.
You missed that novelty.
Yeah, like I remember being there kind of like 10 years ago, because there was also so much more to choose from. And at the same time, look, there's so many cigar brands around the world. I mean,
any of those Cuban immigrants find their way maybe in West Africa or here in Africa, and we have our own variants?
I mean, look, because tobacco, the growing of cigar tobacco is very different from, for example, cigarette tobacco. It is a long haul. So I do know that, I mean, you get cigars that are called Cameroons. So, for example, and it's usually the wrapper, which is the outside, the tobacco leaf that goes on the outside.
Oh, okay.
And that's, I think, grown in Cameroon and parts of Burkina Faso, I think, or Guinea. Outside of that, I mean, I know there are a couple of brands that have come up, like in Zim, they had Musiwa Tuinya. But like I said, I mean, I have a friend of mine who started a cigar brand, and they're 2 years in and only starting to roll cigars.
It's all about skin in the game then.
Yeah, so I mean, because it's like I said, it's similar to, like, say, making a cognac or making a whiskey or making a wine. It's also a blend. Like, you are blending tobaccos from different fields. You're blending tobaccos from different parts of the plant. I mean, they have like levels of the plant and the soil that it's grown in. I mean, for example, like across Nicaragua, there's a area called Jalapa, I think, and there's a lot of volcanic soil. And so tobacco grown there will have certain characteristics in terms of flavor. Now, if you're combining that with a tobacco from Esteli, which is also in Nicaragua, you're having to find the right balance. So, I mean, they're putting it's down to like percentages, like 5% of this leaf with 10% of that leaf, and there's a master blender, and you're rolling those and testing them out, and then you're you're aging them a little bit and coming back to test them out. So it's not it's not something that you decide, one day, hey, I'm actually going to start a cigar brand. And even the growing of the tobacco, like I said, it's a process that's kind of resource heavy.
Look, Kojo, you've sold it quite well. If I find myself addicted to the stuff, I'm calling your number. Kojo Before, author and cigar enthusiast, talking to us about the art and challenges of storing fine cigars.
The Money Show will give you all the tools you need to navigate the complicated world of economics and commerce, even if you're not a numbers person. The Money Show
with Moteo Khwaripe,
6 to 8 p.m. Making money makes sense
on 702 and Cape Talk.
We still have some bragging rights for you in the Friday Blitz Biz. Here's your first question. If you do know the answer, called 011-883-0702 or 021-446-0567. Name the U.S. company that controls macro and game retail stores here in South Africa. Name the U.S. company that controls macro and game retail stores here in South Africa. If you know the answer, that's the number to call, 011-883-0702 or 021-446-0567. See you after this.
Light the fire this game day with a winning lineup from Checkers. Like Championship Boerewors thick or thin for just $109.99 per kilo. Steakhouse Classic man-sized T-bone for only 140 Rand per kilo. And Tate's potato chips 125 grams. Buy any two for 32 Rand. Light the fire, South Africa, and let Checkers do the rest. Deals valid until this Sunday, only at Checkers.
At Trinity House, authentic Christian values empower our students to succeed together. With passionate teachers and expert coaches, we support your child in reaching their full potential in the classroom and in life. Join us for our open day on Saturday, 13 September from 9 to 12 at our campuses in Centurion, Glen Vista, Rand Park Ridge, and Little Falls. RSVP now at trinityhouse.co.za. Trinity House, succeeding together.
For those 2 a.m. checkouts or the late night shift, for the last minute orders and the beginning of the month rush, for the 9 to 5 that becomes a 5 to 9. You don't clock out, and neither should your payments. Pay fast by network, always open for the dreamers, the doers, for you. From e-commerce to in-store payments and business funding, we have you covered. Sign up today at payfast.io.
Dreaming of your next getaway? Whether it's a sun-soaked beach escape, adventure-packed tour, or luxury cruise, Flight Centre is your go-to for travel. From flights and hotels to tours and cruises, we've got it all. Plus travel insurance for peace of mind. If you want the best deals, you can save more by taking advantage of our Bundle Plus Save offer. Plan your trip today at your nearest Flight Centre store or visit flightcentre.co.za. Flight Centre, your centre for travel.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, equipping you with efficient and secure cash management solutions for your business.
The Money Show, Friday Biz Blitz.
All right, Miranda from Johannesburg, you're first up. The question, name the U.S. company that controls macro and game retail stores. The answer is?
Walmart.
Walmart, of course, the correct answer there. Walmart, the world's largest retailer, set to launch its first South African stores. They'll be coming out before the end of this year. Could be competing with ShopRite. We'll see. ShopRite is the giant in this country. Second question, let's see if you can get this one. Mary Vilagazi is the CEO of which JSE listed bank? Mary Vilagazi is the CEO of which JSE listed bank? They had results this week.
First Rand.
First Rand Group, I'll give you that one. It is the correct answer. First Rand delivering a solid operational performance for the year ended in June. Let's see if you can get the third one there, Miranda. DSY is the JSE trading code for which company? DSY is the JSE trading code for which company? Also released results this week.
I don't know.
Sorry, Miranda. Very quickly, before we go to news, Tobile in Benmore. Let's see if you can get this one. DSY is the JC trading code of which company? The answer is in the acronym. DSY is the JC trading code of which company? Take a guess. They also had results. They have all sorts of nice things like but this is going to give it away. If I give you this, you'll know the answer. Their bank recently reported a good profit for the first time.
Is it Capitec?
No,
Sorry, Discovery.
Discovery is the correct answer. Because you're out of time, I'll give you that one. I think it was quick enough. One more.
Thank you.
One more. Anglo-American mining giant with strong ties to South Africa is one of those that we'll have later. But I want to give you another question. The US government has wiggled its way into owning 10% of which chip-making company? The US government has wiggled its way into owning 10% of which chip company? They were well known for making computers in the 90s. Very, very famous brand for making computers. But these days, they deal in chips.
Microsoft? No, computers, right? No, sorry. I don't know the answer.
Well, I'll give you an A for effort there, Tobile in Benmore. The answer you were looking for was Intel. The US government has taken a 10% stake in Intel, investing $8.9 billion through the Chips and Science Act to boost domestic chip manufacturing in the US. Thank you all for playing for our Friday Biz Blitz.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Malapo. Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille says the main objective is to diversify the country's tourism offerings to potential investors to the less visited provinces. This, as earlier this week, the inaugural Tourism Investment Summit kicked off in Cape Town, paving the way to put tourism investment on the global agenda ahead of today's G20 Tourism Ministers meeting in Skukuza at the Kruger National Park. 8 bankable tourism projects that represent close to 1 billion rand in potential investment were unveiled during the summit. The projects range in size in various provinces like Mpumalanga, the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, among others. They offer investment opportunities in ecotourism, hospitality, infrastructure, cultural heritage tourism and green innovation. The minister says the country has more tourism hotspots to offer.
You know, there's a perception that South Africa is all about safaris and Table Mountain. Now, yes, those are iconic places and they must still be visited. But we also want to take tourism into the less visited provinces. So we then decided to have the first tourism infrastructure investment summit in Cape Town 2 days ago, where we were able to package 8 infrastructure projects to the value of almost R1 billion.
The Standing Committee on the Auditor General is concerned that withholding municipalities' equitable share funding because of unpaid Auditor General fees will be detrimental to service delivery. The committee noted how the Auditor General managed to recover 460 million rand from municipalities following National Treasury's intervention, but it warned against the imposing of Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution to withhold equitable share. National Treasury and the AG briefed Parliament's Standing Committee on the Auditor General on the effectiveness of the entity's current funding model. Babalandenza has more.
As of the 31st of July, the total outstanding debt to the Auditor General stood at 1.8 billion rand, with more than 400 million rand owed by local governments. National Treasury says the country's municipalities paid 460 million rand after writing letters warning them of the withholding of equitable share funding that goes towards service delivery. Standing Committee on the Auditor General Chairperson Vota Wessels noted the settlement, but says this will have a negative impact on service delivery.
But that's my observation with regards to that, and I just want to echo what Honourable Montana said, that it's not very productive, especially in terms of service delivery to the poorest of the poor, to withhold equitable share, and it doesn't actually take us in the right direction.
National Treasury says it withheld portions of the local government equitable share and funds were only released in installments, once proof of payment to the Auditor General and other creditors was provided. Babalo Ndense, Eyewitness News.
The ANC has welcomed the decision to withdraw draft regulations that could have led to the blacklisting of individuals with historic student debt. Earlier this week, the Department of Trade and Industry published amendments to the National Credit Act. The move sparked public outrage over provisions that would have penalized those with student debt, prompting Minister Parkstow to retract the regulations. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula says the withdrawn amendments did not reflect ANC policy, even though they were introduced by the party's minister.
Access to education must not be used as hindrance to future economic opportunities. We therefore welcome the withdrawal of the regulations and call upon the private sector to continue to contribute to employment of young people and facilitate their entrance into the labor market without the impediments previously imposed by National Credit Act.
Some taxi drivers in the Johannesburg CBD have shared the difficulties they faced during the 2-year closure of Lilian Ngoyi Street. The transport sector was severely affected when the road was closed to traffic in 2023 following an underground gas explosion. During the closure, taxis, buses and private vehicles were forced onto alternative routes, causing heavy congestion throughout the CBD. The city of Johannesburg finally reopened the road to motorists this morning. Alpha Ramushana has more.
It's back to normal for both businesses on Lilian Ngoyi Street and taxi drivers who've had to take alternative routes over the past 2 years. Dumiso Chabela is among the first taxi drivers to use the newly rebuilt road this morning and says the past 2 years have been tough.
The traffic was bad. Making money, yeah, but not that much.
Another taxi driver, Matome Mpekwane, is glad the road has finally been reopened this morning, but says it's still not taxi friendly.
Before the streets was destroyed, it had 4 lanes. Now it only has 2. We'll have to share this road with trucks and other motorists, which is going to make traffic congestion worse.
The city of Johannesburg says its engineers have taken measures to ensure that no similar underground gas explosion occurs in the future. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg.
And Japan has slapped new sanctions on Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. 47 Russian companies, 9 individuals and several other entities believed to be involved in the aggression against Ukraine have been targeted. Japan is also immediately lowering the G7 imposed price cap on Russian seaborne crude from $60 to $47.60 per barrel. This decision follows the same move by the European Union and Britain in July. Gold's trading at $3,649.40 an ounce. The rand's at 17.36 to the dollar, at 23.54 to the pound, at 20.36 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $67.08 a barrel.
We're still dealing with that accident scene in the Hermanstad area. This is leaving Pretoria on Eskiamphahlele before the R80 slowing down traffic. Also accident scene. This is in the Montana area on the N1 northbound approaching the N4, causing delays from Sefako Makhato Drive. And there's also delays in the Mother City N2 outbound. This is heading towards Airport Approach Road.
A look at your weather. A fine start in store for Gauteng, becoming a partly cloudy Saturday with isolated afternoon showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 27. Pretoria is at 10, also reaching highs of 27 degrees. Vereeniging is at 19 and 26. A partly cloudy day for Cape Town, along with strong southeasterly winds at a low of 13 and a high of 21 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille says the main objective of tourism investment in the country is to diversify South Africa's offerings to potential investors to the less visited provinces.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, equipping you with efficient and secure cash management solutions for your business.
7:02.
You're listening to the best of The Money Show.
The Money Show.
It's just after 7 p.m. here on The Money Show. Welcome to the best bits of the show. You're listening to a digest of just some of the best interviews from the show this week. If you'd like to hear more, go to our website or your favorite podcast app and search for The Money Show. Give us a rating, preferably a good one, and share with your colleagues and friends. That's always our message, and you should listen to it. Go to your app and just give us a proper rating. Now, to start, here are some of the news stories that piqued our interest from the week that was. The National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, has suspended a senior staff member and ordered an independent audit after confessing to a 54 billion rand catastrophic error or big boo-boo in its calculations of Eskom's revenue requirements used to set tariff hikes. So if you're wondering why your 100 rand note doesn't get you much electricity units these days, well, at least you know the answer. Anglo-American PLC also agreeing to acquire Canada's tech resources, creating a more than $50 billion company in one of the biggest mining deals in just over a decade. The South African government has moved to implement one of the largest labour reforms since the 90s, giving more protection to smaller companies, which, unlike their bigger peers, do not have expensive human resources capabilities. Now, the new rules gazetted by Employment and Labour Minister Nomakosazana Meth also lower the bar for the dismissal of experienced workers deemed to be underperforming by their employer. Then let's move on then to tonight. We bring you a mix of stories from the world of money from the week that has been. This week on our book review segment, we spoke to Bronwyn Williams, a popular favorite here on The Money Show, the trend translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends. Now, she reviewed the Adaptability Code, Recoding the DNA of Future-Ready Leadership. This book then written by Mushambi Muduma.
Well, it basically does what it says on the can. The Adaptability Code is a business book that kind of highlights quite a lot of the common sense that is required for business today. So it's basically the kind of answer to the, what do they call it, VUCA or Bainey world. And I'm sure there's a few more acronyms that are floating around by now. But in essence, he's really talking about exactly that. The leaders need to be more adaptable. And specifically, what they need to do is start investing in tools like foresight to build their resilience and to become more anticipatory and adaptable. So basically, he's done a wonderful job writing a book to essentially sell the services of futurist and foresight practitioners like myself. So shout out to him for paving the way, for proving the importance of the work we do.
So basically, it talks about what makes a good leader and things like foresight. And some of that is about, I mean, in some ways, it's a bit of common sense. You do want someone who can understand what's going to come next, and you want someone who can survive shocks.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, this is certainly not the only book written on this topic, but it is a topic that is particularly topical at the moment. I think Rich Mulholland also has a book out now on relentless relevance, which is also about this idea of adapting and reinventing yourself. And Craig Wing's book that we've spoken about on this show also speaks about that, having this sort of mindset that can see you through different seasons of change. It is very much the topic of the moment because business as usual just simply isn't working pretty much anywhere that you look. If you look at the luxury fashion houses and how they're being disrupted at the moment. If you look at economies that have done well in the past and suddenly aren't. If you look at big banks, even here in South Africa, who suddenly have competition thanks to like the Reserve Bank opening up licenses for fintechs. Suddenly the things that got you here are not the things that are going to get you where we're going next. And I think this season of change that we're in at the moment has forced a lot of organizations, all the way up from the UN right down to small mom and pop shops, having to reevaluate their business proposition and understand that the sort of people that you hired previously, the kind of mindsets that you recruited for previously, the strategies that used to succeed previously just are not going to get you through the seasons of change ahead. Like some of your listeners might be familiar with the work of Strauss and Co., who did their whole fourth turning thing, which speaks about how the world goes through these generational cycles of some of them more peaceful, some of them more full of contest and conflict and ambiguity. And we're certainly in one of those, as they call them, winter seasons or unravelings, which is another way to look at it at the moment, which is unraveling a lot of the things that we had taken for granted previously. So as I said, this is not a new idea. It's not an idea that we haven't even spoken about on this show, but it's an idea for which there is demand from publishers and from business leaders and from individuals who are suddenly facing a reckoning about what am I going to do to get through these next few years, because the skills that I have, the degrees I've invested in, the networks I've built, the supply chains I've spent years, maybe decades putting together, suddenly they're just not as stable as they used to be. So if it used to be the sorts of people that you recruited for in your graduate programs and the sort of CEOs that you promoted into those positions came from fields like accounting. But a little bird has told me that some of our biggest recruiters, particularly the banks in this country, are now no longer recruiting CAs into their graduate programs next year. They're going to be recruiting more engineers and people who can code and program because they're looking for a different mindset. And that's why books like this are so topical at the moment. It's a season of change.
I noticed that one of the elements that they look for in a leader is curiosity. I find that very interesting. I mean, I'm sort of on a bit of a curiosity kick at the moment. I blame Ted Lasso. But curiosity is something that you need to actually have. You need to be curious about what is going to happen next and how to do it. It needs to be something you actually actively think about for fun.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is one of the core tenets of foresight too. The foundation of the field is noticing things, and you don't notice things unless you're looking for things, and you're less likely to look for things unless you are curious. So curiosity is one of those things that's suitable for the current context, but it wasn't something that was exactly rewarded in corporate hierarchies not so long ago, right? I mean, it wasn't the greatest strategic career move to stick your hand up and ask questions or to challenge leadership, but now it's becoming an essential skill. So we see companies, leadership teams, leadership structures having to unlearn, as they say, all this behavior that used to reward you, for progressing in your career. So being curious, asking questions, taking risks, which is really what curiosity is kind of code for, right? It's going where you haven't gone before, trying something new, all of which has a degree of risk to it, suddenly becomes the less risky strategy in a completely risk-on context.
And the other one was care. And I mean, I know there's a lot that's sort of spoken about this. But I do think care is something that people you are leading respond to.
Yes, absolutely. Care is one of those things we see popping up in all sorts of places at the moment. And actually, Carmen Murray, the lady who put me onto this particular book, is organizing an event. She runs a leadership forum called the Conscious Leaders. That's all about female leadership empowerment. And her core tenets are foresight intelligence and, empathetic intelligence and all these different types of intelligence, but both empathy and foresight fall very much within the work that she's doing with corporates and individuals and entrepreneurs. And it is coming through stronger. Again, this is not part of your traditional management playbook, which used to be about maintaining, it used to be about structure, it used to be about order, it used to be about avoiding curiosity and sticking to the plan. And now suddenly you're having to add in and layer in these things that don't come naturally, that are about curiosity, about risk, about adaptability, about foresight rather than about today, about care, about compassion, and about, as Ronan is, another person we've mentioned on this show previously for his book Breach, talks about with younger employees in particular, requiring what he terms to be the momager. This idea of a more maternal, caring type leader is what younger employees are looking for at the moment. In fact, outright demanding if they're going to have any sort of loyalty to your firm.
That was Bronwyn Williams, a trend translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends, who joined us for this week's book review. She explored the adaptability code, recoding the DNA of future-ready leadership, written by Moshambi Muduma.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
Last orders coming through during your drive home or at midnight. Your customers check out whenever, wherever. With seamless payment integration and over 18 ways to get paid, PayFast by Network is built to keep up. And when it's time to grow, funding with Easy Advance helps you take the next step. Always open for late nights, for early starts, for you. Sign up today at payfast.io. PayFast has partnered with TimeBank to offer funding to your business.
At Trinity House, authentic Christian values empower our students to succeed together. With passionate teachers and expert coaches, we support your child in reaching their full potential in the classroom and in life. Join us for our open day on Saturday, 13 September from 9 to 12 at our campuses in Centurion, Glen Vista, Rand Park Ridge and Little Falls. RSVP now at trinityhouse.co.za. Trinity House, succeeding together.
Cash management, real-time visibility, and total control.
Ready, set, cash flow. Corporate banking from RMB. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider.
702.
The best of the Money Show from this week.
Now, in a recent edition of Shapeshifter, we featured Zwela Kemguni, Chief Investment Officer and co-founder of Benguela Global Fund Managers. Mguni shared his inspiring journey from growing up in a squatter camp in Sebokeng, south of Johannesburg, to working as a security guard for 4 years to fund his education. Now, despite the odds, he pursued his dreams and now oversees around 7.2 billion rand in assets under management at Benguela. Let's take a listen.
So I grew up in Sebokeng in an informal settlement, and during the riots, my parents sent us to the Free State to go to school. I think that was 1986 during Black Power, because it got too rowdy in the township and schooling was very difficult, and we spent a lot of time running away from police or throwing stones at police. And my dad didn't like that at all, so he took us to the Free State. And we got into a little farm school near Kroonstad. And we actually, and that was because no other school wanted to take us because it was already April, if I'm not mistaken. It was just after Easter. So that element was actually quite significant in changing my fortune when I compared to the guys that remained behind. And I think from there, it was just schooling, getting to matric, but I didn't have money to go study further. And when I saw that situation, I mean, I discussed with my parents to say, I probably need to try and find a job to try and just save up to pay up for my studies. But then when I did the numbers, I realized I wouldn't be able to get a job that can give me 1 year's fees. So I started working. Actually, my first job was digging trenches to pipe water. And I took that money and put it into training at a security academy. And after 3 months I was done at the security academy, and I got my first job as a security guard. And that was then all about discipline from there. I had to be disciplined to ensure that every month I saved money. And I had a lady at a bank in Vanderbijl Park, at a red branded bank. And I started with 50 Rand. That was my first saving. And I had to take care of my parents, also take care of my siblings with the balance, but I started saving 50 Rand. So that savings journey went on, and every time I got an increase, I saved that money until I got to about 60,000 Rand in savings. And I went to register at what was called RAW at the time, and I started a BCTA there, so I started with yeah.
Okay, I've got lots to ask you about this section. I do just want to go back just a little bit, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Zulaki, because it's such a fascinating story. You had picked up immense drive by this point. Your father, I think, was a truck driver. You know, the time having to, I presume, leave your family to be in the Free State. This idea that you could do all of that, and I realized the country was changing, and that was obviously a very important part of what was happening. But you clearly had immense discipline, and you must have had confidence, and you must have known by then that you could be good with numbers. Where do you think all of that came from?
Look, I think I was fortunate when we got to the Free State. I mean, there were two teachers that took care of us. So there were four of us. And the two teachers, they instilled a lot of confidence in me in terms of my abilities. And I mean, I was in standard 4. I don't know what it's called today. And I happened to be used as a speaker at a school event for a farewell of a teacher, and I had to write a speech and do it. And that was actually quite a significant thing for me because there were other kids who were in higher grades and they didn't get given that opportunity. I was given that opportunity. So it was a great honor, but it also instilled a lot of confidence in me. Then the second thing was there was a teacher who took a lot of time on me on math, and we would debate like we were friends. And that teacher also had a significant impact in my life. So there are two things. I don't think, I mean, anybody who went to school with me at the time would tell you that I was top of class in every class that I attended, from sub A to matric. I was top of class. So the potential was there, but the money wasn't there to study. So the confidence had been built up through interactions with some of the influential people that were there in my life. But I think my parents were also very supportive. My grandparents believed in education, even though they were not educated themselves. My parents believed in education. And it was something that I took to heart and always yearned for getting out of the situation where we didn't have any means to survive, to a stability which I believe I've created for both my grandparents and my parents, both on my mom's side and my dad's side.
No, I mean, geez, it's really quite something. Your dad being a truck driver, did that mean he was away from home a lot of the time?
He was, and I used to sneak, during the holidays, I used to sneak into the trucks with him and travel around the country. So I had a very good picture about South Africa from a very young age. But also, he was a gambler, and sometimes he'd gamble the money away, and that kind of also influenced me, because we'd come back, let's say if I was with him on the trucks, we'd come back home, and then we'd come home to a drama, and mom is like upset and all those things. So one of the things that I took out of that is that, you know, my dad would try and bet, and my mom would be disciplined. She'd say, okay, I'd allocate X amount to the betting and then nothing else. So I think I skewed myself to the side of my mom from a discipline point of view, financial discipline point of view. And I think it's something that is also reflected in how I look at clients' monies. That I cannot gamble with clients' monies. I always have to respect it, that if I'm wrong, they shouldn't suffer just because I made a bet that might be driven by my ego sometimes, might be driven by my erroneous analysis. So you always have to be humble to be able to correct course the whole time. So you good student, and you don't get to go to university at the time you wish to go. And what do? You need to make a plan, write down a plan, stick to that plan, be disciplined. From time to time, things don't go well, but you have to pull everything in line. And that's a function of discipline. And I think my colleagues would attest to the fact that I am very focused on being disciplined. I mean, process, discipline are things that drive my mind a lot.
And Zwelakhe, I mean, you were working as a security guard, and I sort of have two questions. I mean, how long did it take to save 60,000 rand? It must have taken a long time. And the other thing is that I know when you're a security guard, there are things you have to do. You have to keep logs. You often have to do a patrol. But someone like you, who had been, you know, the top student, you must have found it a little dull.
Yeah, disheartening. I mean, it's a hard thing. Also, you also realize how people treat you when you are down there. And to this day, I make sure that the security guards, wherever I work, I try and treat them differently. The experience is very humbling. And I think I don't regret it at all. I think it was something that I needed to be very conscious about life, what other people's needs are. People don't choose their weaknesses, they don't choose their circumstances, and you have to have some empathy towards that, their situation. So in terms of the savings, I mean, it was a hard slog. So every increase that I got, I actually swung it into my savings account. And it grew slowly, but as the increases came, so if you go from my first pay packet was 983 rand. And I went from that over time, like in the first year, I ended up at 1,400, and I took the difference all to the savings account. So started with 50 rand, I was now saving 500 rand a month. And then I kept stepping it up as I got increases and I got promotions. So by the time I left, I was, I think it took me 5 years to be exact.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. So, but you have to stay focused, and you could get a lot of things that distract you. You have to focus on the main goal, and I made that the main thing. And I'll tell you something funny. I mean, I actually broke up with the girlfriend that I had, and I completely got out of the dating market and focused on this whole thing to say, I'm never going to get out of this if I get distracted. And some of these anecdotes I'm sharing so that, you know, sometimes people are out there and their situation is dire and they don't see their way out. And my experience is that if you plan and you remain disciplined and you focus, I think that has been something that has been significant in making that change.
Sure. Quite a story. So by the time you went to university, by the time you got into what was then RAU when you applied, you were what, 23? You were you were older than your other students. And then I do think I need to mention this. You were a black man from Sebokeng who had been working as a security guard. And I imagine a lot of the people in your class would have been, you know, white 18-year-old, there's a wonderful word for it, 18-year-old jerks, by which I mean they know nothing about life, very confident. And there you are, you've been a working man for a long time.
Indeed. And I think that working experience was my advantage, or having experienced life differently was a major advantage, because I remember the first test. I mean, many of these people, like, they spoke very well, private school, because by then, many of the black kids had been transitioning en masse now into private schools. And a lot of them lacked focus. And that gave me an opportunity. One of the lecturers, Miss Carstens, and I'm still in touch with the accounting department at RAU. Miss Carstens made us write a test, and we all failed. And she said, I wanted you guys to realize that you are not at high school anymore. And that was a major wake-up call. And I worked hard consistently throughout that period. And I ended up, I got a few awards from my first year and my second year. So there was a lot of discipline, but the other kids were not as disciplined because they had the money, they had everything. And I had the money that I came with, and I actually had to try and make sure that I spread it over the study period. I was privileged then at the end of the first year that I got Deloitte came through for me, and they gave me a scholarship, and Ernst & Young gave me a bursary. So I suddenly was making as much as I was making as a security guard, but while studying. And that was a significant change. Again, so I never actually used that money. RAU gave me back my study fees and my money for books. And I actually started for free, if I could call it that. So I paid for my first year, got in, and then at the end of the year, the money came back to me, and I spent money on the living expenses. And I was on bursaries and scholarships throughout. And that was, again, a privilege that to this day I'm grateful to my lecturers at RAU, Professor Ben Marks and Prof. Sidani Kutsia, those guys were amazing, Prof. Hendrik, and they made a big difference in my life.
I'm sure.
So it's a story of discipline, but also being aware of the privilege that you have. So I could have come in, now I have money, and I could have said, I'm making the same money as when I was a security guard, and therefore I could live up a little bit. But the discipline, I just remained focused to say, I need to get out of this. And by the end of it, I was very privileged again to be taken into a program that was called Inroads, which was an internship. And I was hosted by Katie's.
Okay.
And Katie basically took me there. And that was my start of the career in financial services.
That was Zwela Kimguni, Chief Investment Officer and co-founder of Benguela Global Fund Managers, sharing his remarkable journey from Sebokeng to overseeing billions in assets in the country. His story was a powerful reminder of resilience, determination, and the impact of staying true to one's vision.
Beyond the roads they built, beyond the maps they drew, lies a place only the bold will know, where mountains rise like giants and rivers test your will. With a 2.4-litre turbo diesel and off-road capability, the GWM tank was born for this. Venture further in the Tank 300 from only $7,999 per month. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM, go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank and authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
One festival, endless flavor, and 2 unforgettable days of timeless music. The DSTV Delicious International Food and Music Festival, powered by Lotto Star, returns on 20 and 21 September at Kyalami Grand Prix Circuit. On Saturday, the stage erupts with Don Toliver, Questa, and Nkabi Zezwe. Then on Sunday, experience the legendary Lauryn Hill, Wyclef Jean, Lyra, and more. The DSTV Delicious Festival, powered by Lotto Star. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
This is Jade. She'll spend hours comparing almond milk and once made a spreadsheet just for sneakers. But when she found Santam, SA's leading short-term insurer that offers a range of cover options, from vehicle to building and home contents, even she didn't overthink it. The kind of freedom Santam gives you takes some getting used to. Speak to your broker. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer, and controlling company for its group companies.
Running a business is tough. You need tools that just work. That's why more South African businesses are switching to Mac. At iStore, we make it easy with 4,000 rands in added value when you switch. That's 3 years extended warranty and remote tech support, leaving you to focus on everything else. Switch to Mac with iStore, your expert partner. T's and C's apply. Mac at iStore. Run smooth as business should.
You're listening to The Money Show's best bits.
On this week's Personal Finance, we spoke to Warren Ingram, financial advisor and co-founder of Galileo Capital, about the importance of National Wills Week and why having a valid will is essential for protecting your loved ones and ensuring your wishes are respected.
It's one of those things where when I do a talk to an audience and I ask people by a show of hands to put up their hands if they've got a will, it's usually about half the audience. And that audience might well include lots of people who are parents. And for me, that's always astonishing, that parents, I mean, obviously there'll be an element of illiteracy or ignorance about the need for a will, but for people who know about wills and our parents, it's, this is the public service announcement. Guess what? You really, really, really need a will.
I think there might be two things that come with this conversation. The one is, I think a lot of people think, well, I have nothing really to fight over, so it doesn't matter. And the second is, I don't want to talk about dying. And actually, both of those things aren't really true. You have to talk about dying, and actually, most people do have something that people will fight over if you don't sort it out beforehand.
Yeah. So let's talk about the dying thing. It's true. It's a psychological phenomenon. We don't want to think about it, and we don't we don't think about our mortality all the time. I hope we don't. We're too busy with the business of living. But it is the one thing we all have in common. One day we're all not going to be here, and so we've had so many unfortunate examples for all of us that, if you just keep thinking about the pandemic and all the accidents that happen all around us, it's going to happen. And there is a decent chance that it happens in a way that you have no time to plan and no time to prepare. So, let's kind of just for a little while think that it's one thing we can have, and put in place, and then hopefully it's not required for many decades to come. But maybe to your point around people who say, but hang on, I don't have stuff, it doesn't matter. The thing is, when you've got anything, any possession, and you're over the age of 16 or 18, and you die without a will. What's happening is that the mess gets left behind. So someone has to kind of close your accounts. Nowadays we have social media accounts, and you might have bank accounts, and all of that stuff requires paperwork, and it requires someone to have the authority to approach banks or the big institutions to say, unfortunately, this person has died. And if you've not given anyone that power and that authority to do that, all that happens is you just leave behind a mess. And can you imagine trying to explain, for example, to SABC about your TV license that actually, I'm sorry, that person's not alive anymore. Those are tough things to deal with. So you do need a will, even if you don't have tens or hundreds or millions in assets. You just need to be able to do it for good order. And then, if you have children, you absolutely need a will, because who's the designated authorized person that's allowed to take responsibility for your children? You can't just leave that up to the ether, because you might just be leaving everybody, including your kids, in a heck of a mess.
Okay, so the case to have a will is obviously there. The primary function, I suppose, about a will is that it distributes your possessions according to what you want after you've left us.
Yeah. So we need to have in writing a document, and in this day and age, it seems strange and archaic, but it's the reality. It needs to be a physical document, and it needs to be in writing and signed, and quite a few little legal requirements. But it's there to tell the world what should happen to your possessions, to your stuff, in the event of your death. And then, if you have children, who looks after your children. There are a couple of other important things as well, but the primary thing is, this is what happens, and on my death, this is what needs to happen with my stuff. Secondly, this is what happens with my children, and then who is the person, and the lawyers love jargon, so this is a piece of jargon. Who's the executor of the estate, and that's the person who gets legal responsibility to do the things on behalf of you, because you're dead. So they in effect become the person that will wind up your estate and sign up all the documents that are required and give all the instructions as if you were still alive. So it's very important in a document like this that those kinds of things are covered, and that you take responsibility for kind of just getting this done.
011-883-0702, 021-446-0567. Your questions for Warren Ingram about wills, voice notes as well on 072-702-1702. Warren, I think there's another perception about being an executor that actually you need to know a lawyer, or if you don't have one in the family or someone you trust who's a lawyer, actually you really can't find an executor. How technical is it? Do you really need to have a mate who's a lawyer?
There are people with no background in law that have successfully wound up an estate, and lots of people. I often hear someone saying to me, "I wound up my mother's estate," and I think that it's not impossible. I think you can go through the process. What I would say is, I would certainly not want to be nominated as an executor on anybody's estate. But number one, there's a huge amount of paperwork. Number two, you're dealing with government departments, especially the Master's Office, that in some of the provinces in South Africa is really not up to scratch. And then you're dealing with the banks and all the other institutions. So you're not giving anybody a kind of a gift or an honor by appointing them as an executor, and certainly I think, getting someone who's got experience in winding up estates to do that would, in my view, be better. But certainly you don't need to be a professional. And I think often I'd say to people, if you don't want to appoint some nameless lawyer or some law firm, as the executor, then you can appoint somebody that maybe is just fairly decent with paperwork and fairly up to date with just their own admin. And then just remind them that they're allowed to appoint an agent on your behalf. In other words, the person can be the executor, but they can subcontract a lot of the legwork around winding up an estate if that's what's required. So that would be the kind of best second prize, I think, if you don't want to appoint a legal professional. But gee, I'd think very carefully about it. It's a tricky thing to wind up an estate.
Sure. T. Sapanya's messaged us on 072-702-1702 saying, "Evening, Stephen. Pardon my ignorance. T, we're learning together. Can a bank you have an account with hold your will for safekeeping even though they didn't draft it?" This is from Table. I don't know if a bank would do that. I mean, I think that's another thing is, where do you actually put a will once you've drafted it?
So I mean, the answer is that they could, but hold your will on your behalf. But I think you're right, Stephen, that they won't do it unless they are the executor as well. So it's not, they won't have a commercial interest in holding a will where they're not the executor. So my suggestion always with this is make sure that when you draft a will, you get two proper copies of the will done at once. So you can keep one in a place in your house where you make sure that you tell people that you trust who are not in your in your household, and I'll explain why now. But so that's one. You tell people, in XYZ drawer in this bedroom is kind of where my will is with all the other pieces of paper that you need to know. And then secondly, if you don't have a law firm that's done the will for you and they keep a copy, keep it at someone else's house that's not in your immediate household. And the reason for that's very simple is, if something happens to your house, let's say you and your family die in a fire, everything's burnt in that house, including some of the people who might have known about where the will is. So making sure that your will is in a different place. So one copy is in a different place and one is in your house is fine. Otherwise, if you do appoint a law firm, they can keep a copy on your behalf.
James from Simonstown says, "It must be remembered wills are ephemeral. 5 minutes after a will has been witnessed and signed, their testator, the person I presume who's made the will, can simply renounce the document and sign a totally new will with new witnesses. An attorney may not know they're holding a sort of redundant will." I mean, this is the stuff of American and now Mexican soap operas and telenovelas. But James is right. Legally, I mean, I could write a will now and tear it all up, or not even tear it all up, and then just go home and write another one.
It's a good point, and I'm not sure if that's a critique or not, but to me that's a benefit, because life does change, and certainly people that you appointed as beneficiaries, so people who you want to leave some money to, if their lives change or they're not around anymore and you want to update your will, one of the things that you write in a will is this is the kind of current valid will, and all previous wills are now null and void, and so he's 100% right. But the thing I like about this flexibility is that it's not a contract where, if you've got a will stored with a company in Joburg and you move to Durban, you don't have to notify that company. You can just simply draft a new will and make sure that that this is the new and current one. So I think it is quite flexible. But the point is right. There could be 5 or 6 copies of your wills if you haven't torn them up and had them shredded and told the people that that previous law firms or whatever that they could be around. But the most recent one, the one that's most current in terms of date, will be the one that will then be your valid will.
Okay. Before we move on, and there are quite a few questions coming in, but I do need to do this. What happens if you die without a will? Technically, I mean, where does it go? It goes to government, the problem.
Fortunately, we don't donate all our stuff to government. If we die.
Sorry, I meant the problem, but yes, yeah.
So there is a law it's called the Intestate Succession Act, and it governs what will happen. But just very kind of summarily, it will be up to a bunch of government officials and then executors appointed by them to determine how your possessions are going to be transferred to your beneficiaries. And remember here that you might have got divorced and have a new life partner, and if your will is old or you don't have a will, the government officials might not know about your life partner, and they might decide to leave some of the assets to your ex-spouse because your ex-spouse is going to be responsible for the children, and you might have had a plan to leave all the assets to your children, with another responsible adult taking account of the money and looking after your children financially. So you can end up in a situation where your possessions get allocated to people that you wouldn't have wanted to benefit, and potentially that your children end up being looked after by someone that you certainly wouldn't have wanted to take responsibility. So what you're leaving behind is just one enormous mess.
That was Warren Ingram, financial advisor and co-founder of Galileo Capital, speaking to us about the importance of National Wills Week.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, equipping you with efficient and secure cash management solutions for your business.
The best of The Money Show
on 702.
In this week's edition of Investment School, we explored why investing in the city matters, speaking to Roby Brosen, the visionary behind Nando's and the Jozi My Jozi initiative, as well as Bea Swanepoel, the CEO of Jozi My Jozi, who shared how their deep love for Johannesburg has inspired a hands-on mission to rebuild the city through creativity, community, and purpose-driven action.
Matteo, thank you so much. Thank you for hosting us here and for the effort of coming and being in the city.
Yeah, quite the music in the background. I think quite perfect and suited for this conversation. I'm tired of the doom and gloom, and I'm sure a lot of South Africans are. We watch on TV talks about the CBD, the derelict buildings, and the neglect. But you decided to come together as just private citizens wanting to see a change in the city. Why Jozi My Jozi?
I think the catalyst really was the space, 44 Main and 45 Main, and then a city, because we want to regenerate the city from the space. And Anglo-American moved out to Rosebank, and they wanted to reinvent the space, and so they contacted Wits Business School, and I'm on the board of Wits Business School, and they wanted Wits to move in, and we put a challenge to Anglo. We said, why should Wits move in here when the city's broken, the city's derelict? You Anglo, you built the city, you have to fix the city. And Anglo, and Anglo looked us in the eye and they said, well, you how are you going to do that? And I said, well, you can't do it by throwing money at the problem. That's not the solution. You have to do it from the inside out. It's the people, the invisible people, that have really kept the city alive and have kept the city going. And so we really need to do it from here, from 44 Main. And would you trust us? And so Anglo trusted us. We said you need Great Black, which is really, you need a brand, and we need to create a brand. So Malusi Mhlungu is our creative director, an incredible
Spoke
man.
To him earlier
but then Bea Swanepoel was she's an Anglo. She was at Anglo, and Anglo seconded her to Jozi My Jozi. I think she drew the short straw from Anglo's point of view.
Trusted the one of their own, right?
I won the gold pot.
Just Joburg born, but lives in Pretoria. And Anglo said, you know what? Come, let's put Bea in command and control and see what happens. And she's been beyond exceptional working with the city, and Bea can tell you, it has really been exceptional. For me personally, just, interacting with the city that I love, and doing it from a place of 44 Main, which built the city, but to do it now, to reinvent the city from here in a different way, where the crazies are going to wake the nation. This is about creativity and about young, youthful energy, about job creation, but done in a different way. It's going to take a bit of time. It's not something we're going to do instant overnight, but it's going to be deep and proper and fun.
Bear, you're the CEO of Jozi My Jozi at a time where a lot of big business, a lot of people see Johannesburg CBD in a very negative way. Like you guys say, you are the crazies that decided to form a force, to come back and change things around. Tell us about Jozi My Jozi and the day-to-day work they do to try and change the CBD.
Well, we're trying to make a real difference for the residents of Johannesburg, really bringing hope and pride back. I think if you bring dignity back to the people that live in the city and you just show them what little steps are necessary, sometimes it's just some basic things that you need to put in place and the world will change. Sometimes it's just fixing a sidewalk, sometimes it's putting solar lights in there, sometimes it's just engaging with communities to understand what is it that they need. So we spend a lot of our time understanding what is required from the people who live here. We're doing this from the inside out. I think Robbie has mentioned that. And that is really listening to what are the needs of the people, and then speaking and collecting and super connecting with the private sector as well as the public sector to say, how can we make this happen for the people? As soon as you put something down that they really need and that they believe in, that is where the ownership comes in, and then it is sustainable and people start looking after the infrastructure.
I'm sure between the two of you, you've made a lot of calls, called in a few favors. How tough has it been?
Plenty. My friends are avoiding me.
They shouldn't.
The little black book between Robbie and me.
Calling those investors, pitching to them to, have a re-look at this part of the city that we've all, turned the other cheek to. We just think the work is too much. But you have taken a block by block, approach to say we can fix it, switch by switch, light by light, and make sure that it regains the sparkle that we know it for. Who are those people that have responded to the call as the crazies were on the phone?
Well, it is most of the private sector in the inner city. We started with the people we felt most comfortable with and the bigger corporates. So we went to Standard Bank, FNB, we went to Nedbank, ABSA. They have been absolutely incredible in supporting us. And
Investec as well. And they're not in the city, they're at the city. And Investec have been incredible.
Yeah, so Nedbank is also not a presence really in the inner city, but then going to the developers and even the small guys who says, I can't invest a lot to make my life better, but I can help you with one solar light. And that is where the magic lies. It's just people coming forward. We've not had one engagement or conversation where they said, no, we're not going to help you, sorry.
People just think it's an impossible task. They don't know where to get involved. So when you actually explain to people, you can put a light in, or you can do some.
You play your little part.
A small part. It's about that.
Yeah.
So it's not about just the whole. You can't eat the elephant. Small bites.
It's baby steps, and that's where that's far where the magic is like.
The most frustrating thing when you try and get big business or other people to invest in an idea is the many no's and the shut doors and the friends that don't answer your phone anymore. So what's kept you going? What are those initiatives that you've seen and thought, geez, Rob, geez, Bear, that is what we're here for?
Look, we have cried at each other now and again because, you're working obviously with the city. It's been, challenging but exciting at the same time. I mean, they've been, we've had a few mayors that have come and gone, and but there's been good city managers, and so we managed to fix potholes and do certain things. But I think the rejection you get is people looking at you thinking it's impossible, and you're not really going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Some people have told us, why should you fix the city? Let the city fail and let the ANC then get pushed out of power, and why are you doing it to make the ANC look good? And we're apolitical. I mean, we can't just sit back and watch the city fail and then
the people that
jump on. No, so it's been a very tough job. I promise it's one of the toughest jobs personally I've had to do, but one of the most exciting and purposeful. So I feel that what gets me up in the morning is the purpose, that you actually doing things. The first thing we really looked at was safety and security, and we've got the Security Mastery Academy now with the Maharishi, which is going to be incredibly successful. And Babizi Bonke is to come and see what Maharishi are doing. I challenge all your listeners to come and see Maharishi, understand what Maharishi do, come and visit the city. But the next layer is social, the homeless of Joburg. And we've got an incredible company called Zlato that are going to be helping us with that. And it's just, we're going to fix the city in Joburg, but we're also going to impact the world, because the solutions that we're going to find are solutions that are going to impact Berlin and San Francisco, because we've got new technology that we bring in to help some of those problems. It's really exciting. We're looking at it from a different lens. And so that's what keeps us excited.
Has there been a collaborative effort with the city of Johannesburg in marking out the spaces and where the need areas are where you can help with the development?
We've got actually a very great relationship at the moment with the City Council and with all of the different municipal-owned entities. We talk about what needs to happen, where does it need to happen, who's going to take which part of the project. So the integration and the support and the collaboration from the public and the private sectors has really been incredible. It was initially very difficult. We had to build up trust so that they could see we're not in here, there's no other side of the coin, we're not in it for anything, we really just want to do this. Yeah. But listen, if you get the feedback from the people, especially where we're busy in those precincts, and they give you feedback that we've changed.
That wrapped up this week's edition of Investment School, where we looked at why investing in the city matters. Robbie Brosen and Bea Swanepoel reflecting on their journey with Josie My Josie and how their passion for Johannesburg has driven a powerful movement to revive the city through creativity, engagement, community and purpose-led initiatives. You've been listening to the best bits of The Money Show, a digest of just some of the best interviews from the show this week. If you'd like to hear more, go to our website or your favorite podcast app and search for The Money Show. Thank you for listening. We'll be back on The Money Show 6 p.m. on Monday. Have a great weekend.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, equipping you with efficient and secure cash management solutions for your business.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Molapo. President Cyril Ramaphosa is appealing to all political parties to put qualified and capable candidates up for elections. Many political parties have started gearing up for the upcoming local government elections due to be held either late next year or early 2027. The president, along with some of his cabinet ministers, were in Rustenburg today to engage the Northwest government over some of the poor-performing municipalities in the province. Ramaphosa says local government in the country continues to be below the required standard, which is in part due to the elected political leadership.
But we also want at the political level to have people who are really competent. And as we are going to the elections next year, we'd like all political parties to deploy people as their candidates who are capable, who've got the competence to run local government properly. And many political parties will admit that we have not yet reached that level.
In the Western Cape, various policing agencies will work together to ensure a 30-day taxi route shutdown is fully enforced in the Heidelberg. Earlier today, Mobility MEC Isaac Seleku announced the closure of 10 routes and